So, Berto, you walk in the door and you look down and stressed out. And I asked you why, and you said,
April Fool. No, just kidding.
You said that you're thinking about moving out of the United States because of the current federal government. So, how are you feeling?
Yeah, it's been stressful because, the first time I felt what the impact of not having control because of higher powers was in Colombia, but I was too young to sort of like appreciate all the complexities of it, meaning that when I was living there, when I was I was like 14, 15, in the late 80s, and before I moved here, I was witnessing uncontrollable forces on a daily basis causing chaos, death, and destruction, right? And there was nothing I could do about it, and nothing anyone I knew could do about it, right? So I did feel a sense of helplessness and hopelessness, but I wasn't in charge of, a family. I wasn't in charge of my own finances. I was just seeing it sort of as an observer. And then I moved up here and it felt like a big relief and all these things. Okay. The second time was when the OJ trial. And you would think like, well, how does this affect me? But it was just because, I had this illusion of like, well, law and order, especially in the United States, it's like consistent. And like if someone did something, they go to jail. And to the point where when I saw the car chase, I thought, oh, that's weird. Oh, he must just go straight to jail. Like in these cases, they must just send him straight to jail. And I watched the whole trial and I got really depressed about it. And I think we've talked about this before. I also talked about it with my therapist, but I think it was kind of bringing up trauma around lack of control. So it was another one of those themes like, what? So there's these forces that I can do nothing about that might be unjust in the world. Okay. Then you fast forward and then 9/11 happened and it was the same, probably worse, but it was like, wait, what? I wasn't sophisticated enough yet in my own introspection to connect the dots. But certainly, if I look at it back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've moved to this country. I'm safe, and yet I'm not safe. All of a sudden,
yeah. I mean, 9/11 was traumatic
for everyone.
For all of us.
Yeah.
But for you, it was particular in that you were staying up all night watching the news, CNN 24/7. It was interfering with your work, your life.
Right. There was something clearly that I wasn't addressing, that I wasn't aware of, that it was bringing up on top of the obvious stress that everyone was feeling. And I'm sure I wasn't the only one, of course, but...
Well, and I'll say that you have a constellation of coping that comprises of, if I might, from an outside observer, of trying to figure it out by gathering information and exposing yourself to all the news 24/7.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't participate in other methods enough, I think, like talking about your feelings or looking inward or taking a break from the news cycle.
Right. And so then the next one after that was in the financial crisis during 2008. But that one hit a little different. Like on the one hand, I was actually, ironically maybe, I was the most affected by it financially than I had been so far with any of the other ones. But I wasn't quite as obsessed with the news all the time.
It didn't seem like half of the country was a bunch of crazed lunatics driving us off a cliff.
But it did have that theme of like, oh, I see, I am subject to the whims of some rich and powerful people that make bad decisions.
Greedy,
and they upset the world, and I'm subject to it, and I have no control over it. Once again. Okay. But now it's happening again. And I am feeling it and I am watching, the videos about it, and then I am just like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And then this time it's, when I left Colombia, I really did feel a lot of weight lifted off my shoulders. On the one hand, of course, I was like being reunited with my mother, which is, of course, not a trivial thing at all. But there was all this sense of like day-to-day stress and near-death experiences almost, right? To all of a sudden, like none of it was there. It was very weird. And all these years, I thought, well, the one thing is that at least, yes, this country has a lot of craziness, but trains run on time, so to speak. Things, it's organized, it's pretty good. Law and order is a thing, blah, blah. Right now, I'm feeling like, oh, whoa, we are no longer in control. Things are spinning way too rapidly. No one seems to be the adults don't seem to be in charge. And it's bringing me back to that feeling of like being 14, 15 and watching the news going, oh, this sucks and there's nothing I can do about it. So hence I've been feeling depressed about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is it fear or empathy or what?
Certainly it started with fear. Then there was some empathy thrown in because obviously there's been some people directly affected in horrible ways, like sent to places like basically in, concentration camps, in other countries. However, like for my family specifically, just the sense of, am I going to be able to provide for them in the future? Like what's happening? And I count myself very lucky. I live in a very good area, in a blue state. I've got a good income, all these things. So I imagine that I'd have a lot of barriers of protection. But at the same time, I saw how quickly my fortunes turned in 2008. So yeah, that worries me. And then not to mention the Hispanic part of this whole thing definitely worries me as well. My mom, for example, was just in Colombia, visiting my grandparents, helping out. And on the way back, all of us were like just crossing our fingers, making sure everything was okay, and everything was okay. But I've never felt that. Like never. I've been here all my adult life, basically since I was 15, I've been in this country. Never once did I feel. The only time I felt the slightest stress was after 9/11, because I was getting like in airports, I would get scrutinized more and get like extra dirty looks. But I don't know why.
Do you feel like half the country doesn't want you here?
Maybe not me specifically, but I definitely feel that 30% of this country would rather see a lot less people like me. Yeah. And that doesn't feel good. And I've been thinking a lot about you recently too, because when they started invoking the same act that led to the imprisonment of your relatives in the past, I was like, oh man, this is where we're at right now. So yeah, all of that together, it's like, and also it's also on top of that.
And to be clear, during World War II, these were people who were legally in the United States and born here.
They were born here. They were a whole thing, and they invoked that act.
Meaning that my great grandparents, they legally immigrated, and then their children were born in the United States.
But they called it the Alien Enemies Act.
Yeah.
So then they could do whatever.
Well, what are you afraid of, like fundamentally?
So I guess
I can imagine, but
the three buckets are: one, financially; two, because of my ethnicity, specifically.
Afraid of what?
Afraid of either at some point getting detained or deported or something, and then the third.
What would that look like though in your head? How does that play out?
Like, we're going to Colombia in July.
So on the way back.
For example,
at customs.
Yeah. I have a tattoo. These people, one of the people that got sent was coming from Colombia. Now they're Venezuelan, but they were coming from Colombia.
Yeah. I mean, even if you lawyer up and get through it eventually, the trauma of being detained and separated from your kids.
And how do you lawyer up in El Salvador in a prison?
Yeah. Well, your wife would be able to.
Yeah, after you're already brutalized and maybe dead. Yeah. I mean, the point is like,
I'm not saying it's a small issue.
This is going to happen.
I'm just saying even if things go
right, exactly.
Worst case scenario, and you manage to recover eventually, even just going through that, or even just being pulled into a back office on the way back from the airport is traumatic, Yeah.
So there's that. And then so financial, that's the second. And then the third bucket is that on top of all of the short-term stuff, like, oh, we'll tariff the world, I don't care what happens to, on top of all that stuff, this circle of people, they have some very disturbing visions of the future they want, which are basically, I feel, don't include me. And so that's the last part, is that this doesn't feel like a short term, like, oh man, we just got to get there. It's 2 years, I can see if we can get new Congress. This feels like a long-term problem. And I guess there's a fourth or a coda here, which is that I don't know exactly how I would even hide from this problem, even if I moved, like Canada. Colombia is not a great option. I mean, it's not a stable country already, and then who knows how it would fare. So then I need to move to some foreign place, like in Europe or some other
Maybe Mars.
location.
Maybe Mars.
Maybe Mars, yeah. So, yeah, all these things added up mean Happy Berto is a little less happy all of a sudden.
Are you afraid of dictatorships?
Yeah. I think that they're the left to their own devices, that is the kind of system that they want, is one where they can just have the power to do whatever they want, because that's what they when I say they, I mean him, but of course he's got all his enablers. So
yeah, to me it's one thing that he was elected once.
Yeah.
But the second time it's just demoralizing.
Yeah.
The first time you think, well, you'll see.
Right.
And then they saw.
Yeah.
And then all the prosecutions and the impeachments and the lies and the disappointments and the getting Mexico to pay for the wall, and with one side of his mouth saying, you're a pussy if you wear a mask and get a vaccine, with the other, he's wearing masks and getting the vaccine.
Right. And
just divide.
Yeah.
And then he loses in 2020. It's like, okay, all right, America,
I was close.
Those idiots, or the people in the middle, Wisconsin or whatever the swing states are, they saw the light.
They came through. Enough people came through.
Yeah.
We pulled out of the nosedive.
And you have 4 years of even more shit coming out about his Espionage Act violations, about...
Then he tries to invade the cap, he tries to subvert the result of the election.
Yeah, January 6th, undeniable mob riot, cult-like behavior, insurrection.
Right.
And you think, okay, well...
that's got to be it.
It was horrible,
yeah,
what we went through.
Right.
Not a great sign that it happened, but
right.
That's the top. Worst case scenario, we'll get like that governor from Florida, but he's a pale
Ron DeSantis,
shadow.
DeSantis.
Yeah, he's not great, but
right.
He's not like Trump. So we'll just go back to hating Republicans in the normal way.
Right, the back and forth we were used to, I guess.
Yeah, and then he wins decidedly.
Yeah,
the second time, and you're just like, what the fucking fuck?
Right, who's around me? Like, wait, did I misunderstand?
Yeah,
who I am and who everyone else is.
Yeah, and then the Elon thing. How, I don't know. It's just, it's demoralizing.
Yeah,
I'll say what I do, which is neither here nor there, is I go back to my model, which is I look at my feelings and value them and feel them and talk about them and think about what the feelings are asking me to do. Because that's what feelings are for. It's there to motivate us. Someone steps in your foot, you feel pain.
Yeah,
Motivates you to pull your foot back. Someone hurts your feelings, and it motivates you to pull away from that person, or to go to that person and say, hey, I don't want you to hurt my feelings. And to be afraid, sad, demoralized, angry, that's feelings telling me to do something, to do what I can.
Yeah,
which isn't much. One could say it's ineffectual in the grand scheme of things, but in the same way that me not littering is ineffectual in the big scheme of overall litter in my community, if we all think along the lines of I'm going to do my part, then we don't see any litter in my community, which I don't see. I don't see a single item of litter in my community.
And I saw that power when I was a kid, because Bogota used to be like a garbage can. Like the whole city was just a garbage can. And they ran this campaign on TV and in radio. They just came up with a very catchy jingle. And all it was is like, Ponga la basura en su lugar. And you would hear that everywhere, and you see these commercials. And they started doing it in schools. And by the time I came back to visit in 96, place was cleaned up. I mean, there's still garbage, but it's like it's a pale, they really did work.
And in the 70s, there was a lot more littering in the United States prior to the campaign to not litter. And that changed. And I saw that change in my lifetime. I didn't live in an inner city the way you did, but even in my suburban, semi-rural area of Sammamish, I remember seeing a lot of litter, and then later on, not so much. And I probably even littered when I was a kid, you know? It's like, I don't want to carry around this used bag of chips, you know? I'm just going to throw it. And so things change. And so what am I going to do with these feelings? I'm going to vote, and I'm going to vote often and firmly.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay attention enough to be informed, but not enough to destroy myself and my family. In fact, I'm far from that threshold because at this point, until there's another voting cycle or something that I can, like I have said to myself, if there is an invasion of Greenland or something, that I will stop at nothing to voice my opposition to that,
right.
Which, you know, could literally mean flying to Washington, D.C. and holding a picket sign outside the White House, like, or storming the White House. Or so. I honestly, like,
seriously, I'm
we're
with you.
not fucking invading another
I'm
country.
with you. Yeah, that's the same. That is at least one of the lines that I've drawn as well. Is like, I'm not going to participate in that.
So I have that plan in my head, and I also will talk about it within reason. This isn't a political podcast, but I'm going to talk about it and offer my angle, which I'm doing right now, of psychology and emotions. I'm going to, in conversations, do my part to lead the way, lead by example. I'm also going to do my part by loving the other, loving those 30% of people, and not talking endless, exaggerated shit about them, and not, at least trying not to put them down or dehumanize them or make them into a cartoon villain. They have their reasons. I feel like I kind of, you know, and that's another thing that I do is I actually look at the conservative subreddit to get an idea of why, you know, like one of the things I did after the tariffs were even just beginning to be talked about a few weeks ago, I'm like, this can't be excused by conservatives, right? This is so obviously not wise on any level, economically, politically, even just for his own skin. It just seems like he's shooting himself in the foot. All the people that he appeals to are the rich, and they're probably losing half of their investments right now, you know? And so I'm like, how in the world is the conservative subreddit spinning this? And I look, and they weren't. And they weren't spinning it. They were like, we're not okay with this.
This doesn't seem okay.
So that made me feel a little better. You know, it's like, okay, you know, and conservative subreddit isn't like necessarily MAGA or the 30%, but they definitely talk shit about liberals. You know what I mean? And so that doesn't mean that the tariffs aren't going to destroy economies and and ourselves and all of our retirement funds. And thank God we're not like 75 and dependent on our retirement
It's
fund.
about time to sell. Oh, wait.
That hopefully, you know, things will recover and our savings will bounce back. But who fucking knows, right? And one of the and this is sort of a tangent, but one of the things that I hadn't really reckoned with was how many people I know close to me who have been affected by these changes. I know a lot of government federal employees
that were let go.
Well,
or no people.
Well, one, a judge. You know her actually.
Oh, jeez.
She's been a federal judge for decades, and I mean, I don't know the specifics. And then you know, high school teachers, FAA employees, and other people. I'm like, people who work for unemployment, and it just never occurred to me just how many people I know work for local and state and federal government jobs, and how Elon can fuck my friends over like that. You know, it's what I knew that a lot of people were being affected, but I don't know. I hadn't asked the question, is this going to affect people around me?
Sure.
You know, it's sort of like the first time you hear about someone getting COVID near you, you know, it's like, oh, this is real. This isn't just a news story that I'm angry about. This is actually ruining people's lives that I know.
Yeah.
You know?
Did you end up watching the Apprentice movie?
No.
Okay, so there's
I actually can't. I couldn't because I just don't. I can't look at that.
Look at that, dude. That's fair. There was a scene right towards the end, which was, I thought, the most important bit of the whole thing. Like, look, Roy Cohn, that guy was like a piece of shit. Like he's a horrible human being. At the same time, he was a functional piece of shit, meaning he wasn't chaotic. So we were talking about D&D, alignments and stuff. He's like lawful evil, I guess, right? Trump's like chaotic evil or something, And so towards the end, he's trying to appeal to Trump. He's like, listen, what are you doing? This is when he's like trying to run the Atlantic City casino. And he's like, what are you doing? And he starts listing all these things he's doing all at the same time. Some of them in contradiction with one another, trying way too many things all at the same time, which are going to be self-destructive. And he's having no ability to break through the outer layers of this guy's psyche. And that's just the emblematic problem. Because right now, it's not like these guys came in and said, okay, we're going to explain this to the American people. We have this one specific problem. Our dollar is overinflated. And so some countries have this weird dynamic with us. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to surgically try that. No. Instead, we're going to do all of it. Fire everyone, tariff everyone. We're going to take over all these other countries, all of it, all at the same time. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Chaotic. Things in opposition to each other. And so I think that adds to the reason why you might start seeing some of those threads that you might have expected to be going along with everything go, now, wait a minute. Hold on. Now I'm confused.
Right.
Which is good. I agree with you. That's hopeful.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I don't believe, maybe there's a 10% of people in this country that literally do want a fascist utopia, maybe. But it wasn't 50% of this country. I firmly believe that there's a vast majority, I don't know what it is, 70%, 80%. There's a vast majority of people in this country that don't want a chaos where only like a few elite in the top get benefits.
Yeah. Another thing I did along these lines was to look up the approval of invading somewhere like Greenland, which was vastly unpopular, even among Republicans. So again, that gives me a little hope.
Yeah.
And also, the last thing I'll say, among various different things that I do to make the world a better place in this way, is by marching, by donating. I donate a lot of money to different organizations along these lines, whether they're purely political or more tangential, like Environmental Defense Fund or something like that. But I also preserve my sanity because I'm not doing anyone any good, whether it's my political movement or my family or myself, if I'm consuming so much news that I'm destroying myself. I'm saying this to you, bro.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you what to do, but I care about you, and I know your pattern, and I know whether it's directly related to your childhood or not, or whether it's even dysfunctional or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to suffer unnecessarily, and the cycle of doom scrolling, not having a plan or not having a way to take action is just absorb, and sit.
True. I totally hear you, man. I think what happened with me is that leading up to the election, I was consuming because I was like hopeful. I was getting hopeful. And so the channels I was watching, they're like, oh, and this is happening, this. I'm like, yes, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. And then when we didn't do this, then it switched immediately to like, what the hell do we do now?
Well, for me, it was, as George Bush said, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice.
You can't get fooled again, as they say in Texas.
You can't fool me again. In 2024, I resigned to the very strong possibility that he was going to win. In fact, if I was to put money down on it, I was predicting that he would win because in 2016, people are ashamed on polls to admit that they're going to vote for Trump. People don't like to stand up and say that they're racist or sexist or anti-humanity or whatever,
Sure.
you know, or there's a lot of reluctant Republicans who are voting for him just because they just hate liberals or they hated Kamala or something.
I mean, she was a woman. I mean, come on.
Or, you know, just positions or whatever. And whereas people are much more likely to admit that, at the very least, that they're not going to vote for Donald Trump. So when the polls were coming out pretty even, I was like, well, this is like 2016 all over again. It might even be worse because there might even be more people who are ashamed to admit that they're going to vote for him again. So,
yeah, my wife, by the way, was on the same boat, and she kept saying that. She's like, I think he's going to win. I kept saying, like, come on. Because I was being hopeful. I'm like, come on. You got to have a little faith on the American people. Come on now.
Well, the thing is that there were still, 50% or something of Americans, or something, 49 or who voted for her. So it's not like a toggle switch of 100% versus 0. It's just these fucking swing states.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah. If I were God, the first thing I would do would be to do a lot of other sorts of things. But one of the things I would do down the line is, after I had my gold-plated yacht and all that kind of stuff, is I would create the country of Pacifica.
Yes.
which bifurcates Washington, Oregon, and California right down the middle. Oh. And both sides would be happy to be rid of each other. And we'd absorb Vancouver, BC as well, because I have heard that they're down with
Canada wants to be absorbed.
I don't know if a part of Mexico, Baja or Tijuana.
Yeah, let's just go down. Let's split America just down the middle, all the way south, all the way north.
Yeah. Maybe we'd get Hawaii too.
Ooh.
Not Alaska.
Oh, then can we go over to Asia? Like grab a little bit of, like half of Asia?
I don't. Well, now you're talking like Donald Trump. When I'm trying to sleep at night and I'm trying to soothe myself, I imagine that scenario.
Nice.
I love Seattle. I love San Francisco. I love LA. I love Portland, of course. I love Bend, Oregon, and Eugene, Aberdeen, and Tacoma, and San Diego, and Shasta.
Sounds like a Depeche Mode song all of a sudden.
What do you mean?
In the Route 66.
Oh.
Well, it goes to, and he starts like naming all the cities.
That's not Depeche Mode, right?
I know, but they did a mix where it was a mix of Behind the Wheel and Route 66.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, along those lines, Berto. Well, tell me, how are you processing everything that we're saying?
No, this is always helpful, as always. So one thing I did do recently, actually 2 nights ago.
Helpful, before you move on, helpful how?
Well, first of all, as always, speaking out loud about what's going on is intrinsically helpful because it gives it a reality, but I also happen to, just my way of learning and processing is me talking.
Yeah.
So it helps me put it in words, and then I hear the words, and then I'm like, right. And then hearing it reflected, or your thoughts and opinions help me go, oh, well, he's 100% wrong. But no, it just helps me put some additional perspectives on it. And just, like, I'm aware of that risk factor with me of the addiction to the content, and just hearing it like, yeah, okay, right. That is something I need to be not only mindful of, but kind of actively engaging with. Yeah, totally. 2 or 3 nights ago, I live streamed for the first time in 4 years.
You didn't tell me.
Well, I guess I was just like, it was kind of funny. I was like, all right, I need to start making content again. And
really?
Yeah. So step one is like, I didn't even know if any other stuff still worked.
Did anyone join?
Yeah.
Really?
We had Junie was in there.
Oh.
And Furkant, we had a couple other folk in there. Yeah.
Wow.
And because I've joined one of Junie's live streams late at night.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah. She, I think, is streaming like midday, but it comes on for us at like midnight.
Right. So I did that once or twice. Yeah. So anyway, so I all I was doing at first was just testing to see if the equipment even still worked. Right. So
by the way, Junie Desiree, patron, long-term fan who has her own channel where she, in a very soothing, I don't know if ASMR is involved, but
Maybe.
I could see, but it's more. It's not purposely ASMR.
Right.
It's just very soothing, and she talks about making journals, and you just see
And makes these amazing journals.
Yeah, the camera is just on her table.
Yeah.
You don't see her, and she talks about her cat, and it's kind of like the Bob Ross of making journals.
Yeah.
And whether you're into making the journals are amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
It just seems like so much fun to craft and make all that kind of stuff. And you just want to, and the way she does it so seamlessly, it's just like, scrapbooking and journaling doesn't have to be dry and boring.
Right.
It could just be like, I went to the store and I had a really good burger. And so I kept the receipt, and I'm going to make a little food journal, and I'm going to,
Right.
and then I'll draw a little, I'll just, with a cute pen, I'll just be like, scrumptious burger,
Right.
and had a good conversation. And then, 10 years from now, you look at that, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Junie Desiree.
Yeah.
But go on, bro.
Yeah, so I wanted to see, first of all, if everything was still working. So I got the camera up and running, got the lights, and I'm like, okay, how does this work? So like I updated the software for OBS, and updated my little video thing, and I was like, okay, I think it's working. So I turned it all on. I'm like, okay, wait, how do I live stream again? Okay, so I went to my YouTube channel. I'm like, okay, I gotta have this. I did all of it, and then I turned it on. And for the first 2 minutes, it's me going like, is this working? Is this thing on? And then I was like opening it up on my phone, and I'm like, I'm not seeing the live stream. I don't think it's working. And then eventually I'm like, oh, it is on. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, the latency.
Now I'm gonna make it more interesting. And then I talked, but I talked about my feelings. I talked about some of this stuff.
Oh, okay.
I talked about my fears of producing content and all these things. And
I mean, you don't normally make content like that, but
that's what I was doing 4 years ago. I have this playlist in my channel called "It's Way Past Your Berto Time," and I would it'd be at night, like after kids are asleep, whatever, 10 p.m. I would go downstairs, just turn on the live stream, and I would blab for like 45 minutes.
well, it's old school YouTube blogging.
Yeah, exactly.
Or vlogging.
And so,
Which I think you, in terms of your skill set and time allotment,
Right.
I think that's perfect for you.
yeah. And you know what's so funny? Totally coincidentally. So I did this thing, and I was very happy to have done it. I'm like, okay, cool. I dusted off the cobwebs. Now I can do this. I know I can do this. And I was feeling, pretty proud that I was able to riff, but I guess I'm like, okay, I can riff. Next day, totally not related to this because he didn't know I had done this. My friend Mitch, calls me up, and we're talking about it. He's like, you know what? I'm getting tired of these channels that, like, they're a channel where I want to hear about some topic. Maybe it's about basketball, and all of a sudden they start talking about their life, and they're telling me all about this, and they had a hard day, and I'm just sitting there going like, well, some people might like that. So it was pretty hilarious. But yeah, so my plan is, now that I've dusted off the cobwebs, is to do like, weekly live stream like that, and also, as we've discussed, I'm going to start creating my music related content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
I just needed to kind of do it. And so that was the other thing, is I kept trying to be like, all right, I'm going to make my first music video thing. And I kept like, but what am I going to say? And so it kept not happening. So finally I'm like, screw this. I'm just going to live stream. And that, that just erases all the overhead.
Yeah. Given your, like I said, skill set and time commitment, or time allowance,
Yeah.
I think it's perfect for you because, you're a blabber, you're a processor verbally.
That's right.
And it's, like with this podcast, when we first started 17 years ago, I thought that all of us were going to contribute the same amount of homework, so to speak. And I was disabused of that assumption very quickly and realized that, oh, I see. And in actuality, Berto and Lita, they're really, really good at improv and thinking on their feet and being spontaneous, which I am not good at. And so I'll do the homework and I'll lob the ball across the plate, and then those guys will hit it out of the park, which you guys would do all the time.
Yeah.
So, different skill sets. And so sitting down and just blabbing, I think is perfect. Yeah. And it's, maybe therapeutic for you. And for the people listening, I wonder if people listening right now are helped by this. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. As I mentioned in that live stream, actually, I said, hey, mostly I was so happy to get like a few random viewers to the thing, but even just me doing it into a black box feels healing for me.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that was because I was an only child and I had to entertain myself, but it works. So if it can help someone else, that's a bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought we would end here. Well, first let's take a break, and then we'll read just one email. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, we're back from the break. This email, anonymous annual patron and YouTube member, she says, "Hi, Dr. H and Berto. I'm writing because I need to vent and try to keep myself grounded. My 17-year-old daughter is currently on foreign exchange in Colombia.
Whoa.
My 14-year-old daughter is currently on foreign exchange in Colombia." Just chiming in. I think that means with you exchange students. Right?
Yeah.
My older brother did this in Japan, actually, when he was 17.
Whoa.
Going on. And her Colombian host mom has a bit of a temper and is also very reactive.
Ew.
Thankfully, her host dad has been wonderful. Her host mom is really nice, too, when she's not flying off the handle. She just caused a crazy situation, though, which had my poor daughter calling me sobbing the last 2 nights in a row. Last night, she was ready to come home. My daughter is seriously one of the kindest, least judgmental people I know. She's kind of shy, but once people get to know her, everyone loves her. So I'm mainly writing to say, I sure wish you and Berto could fly in with superhero capes right now, because my daughter and I could surely use your combined knowledge base and your skills. Please. Just kidding, of course. End of email. Berto, where's your cape?
Berto and Kirk. Notice that for superhero matters, my name comes first. Well, listen, I think it would be fun if you can imagine it. Maybe it's like a cartoon or something. It would be fun. You crash through the window, causing some damage that you're probably going to have to pay for. But you crash through and like, who are you? We are here to help. We heard that there's an emotional crisis happening.
We're podcasters.
Professional podcast. And then, like, well, do you have
No one expects psychology in Seattle.
That's right. Do you have any credentials? At least half of us do. But, I speak the language.
Yeah.
So I can yell in Spanish.
Okay, so in Spanish, tell the host mom, who can be nice,
Right.
what's up?
Hola. Mira, me llamo Humberto, no sé si me conoces. Te aseguro que tienes razones buenas para estar enojada o estar disgustada con cualquier cosa que hizo la niña. Lo único es que acuérdate que está en un ambiente extraño y de pronto hay muchas razones por las cuales ella está actuando en maneras difíciles. También debe sentir un poco de extrañar a su familia y estar con un poco de miedo. Entonces, de pronto un poco más de calma, un poco más de oír qué son los problemas, de pronto caminar con ella, hablar de las cosas. Sí, empatía. Te quiero mucho.
Now, suggest different foods that they might help the host daughter, or the exchange student get access to in
Pues
Colombia.
definitivamente chocolate con queso, una almojábanita. El chocolate es muy rico y además calma los nervios. Claro que tiene cafeína, entonces de pronto no.
Anything without chocolate?
Sí, bueno, una avenita. Avenita de pronto sería mejor porque la avena tiene fibra que va a ayudar a la digestión para calmar el estómago y no tiene la cafeína, entonces de pronto mejor para los nervios.
What about that soup?
¿Ajiaco? ¿Con
think so.
de pollo?
Yeah.
¿Ajiaco? Sí, pero es pesadita.
Kind of a stewy soup.
Sí.
Like potatoes and chickpeas or something, wasn't it?
Había una que es mote de ñame, que tiene queso.
Your wife made it.
Sí, ajiaco. Ajiaco,
okay.
Sí. Bueno, en todo caso, buena suerte. Las quiero, ambas.
And take care of yourself in Spanish.
Porque lo mereces.